Welcome back to Switch to Linux. This is Tom. So today we're going to look at updating Linux systems, and I just had two different computers that I did a full distro upgrade to. One of these being my main Linux Mint computer that we're going to be looking at here today. The other one being my Ubuntu computer. So I'm going to talk about the Ubuntu computer. Well, that's KDE, but it's that computer too. I'm going to talk about that in another video, but on this video here, we're actually going to talk about my experiences upgrading to Linux Mint 18 Sarah, I believe. So the reason why did I want to upgrade, if you heard me before saying, you know, it's out, but I probably will not upgrade it, and the reason is because everything was working just fine. And as long as things are working just fine, that's okay with me. I don't really mind. But I'll say that what ended up happening is there were a couple of things that I noted that weren't working quite as well as they could have been working, and I have been experimenting in the last couple of weeks. I've been experimenting with VPN clients, and Linux Mint 17.3 does not connect to OpenVPN, at least not without some serious hacks. I looked at the versions, I forced increased in versions, I looked at everything else you could possibly look at, and what the problem seemed to be is, I think it's Cinnamon Desktop 2. And of course, Linux Mint 17.3 runs Cinnamon Desktop 2.8.2, I think. And that posed a problem. So I looked at all the numbers, and I said, I really want to get the VPN working on this main work computer. And so what I decided to do is go ahead and actually push the distro upgrade up to 18, because there was nothing in 18 that I didn't like. It was just that 17 was working for me, and 17 stopped working for me because of the whole VPN issue. And once that had occurred, well, then I started looking at the numbers and going, maybe I should consider this. I ran through a little bit of research, and what I found is that you could test to see if there were going to be any issues prior to updating 17.3 to up to 18. And when I found that there really were not any issues, then I was like, okay, that's cool. We'll not worry about it. With that being said, I went ahead and I upgraded this computer to Linux Mint 18. So we'll walk through how I did that. Now, the first major thing I noticed is that if you follow my videos, I don't use OBS a whole lot for screen recording, just because under 17.3, I simply couldn't get the camera working well. So I have the Logitech, was it 920C camera, and I actually had to force some upgrades to get my basic GCU viewer working right with the system in order to get HD video in the first place. But I could never get good high quality HD video out of OBS. And so I used it for cases where I wanted to record the screen, but I didn't put my picture down there. But I just thought that adds a more of a personal touch to the videos, and I wanted to do that. So on my OpenSUSE Enlightenment desktop that I was experimenting with, I was able to kind of duplicate the effect by running your GCU view camera, just to put it up in the corner, take off the borders, and then do a simple screen recorder. So that worked. But in this case here, utilizing OBS will allow me to quickly jump between different screens and whatnot. And so first, the first thing I noted is my camera functions worked great without any extra PPAs installed. It basically is now taking more full advantage. Now, I do not know if that had to do with the update or with the kernel update. One of the things that happened is that the kernel does not automatically update when you go from 17.3, which runs kernel 3.19.0-32, and Linux Mint 18 runs, I think, 4.4.021. And so the kernel did not actually change. And so I went through, and after I pushed the upgrade, then I went ahead and I pushed the kernel upgrade, just to upgrade everything all at once. So I'm not sure if it was upgrading the kernel or if it was upgrading to Linux Mint 18. One of those two solved the issue of the camera not being fully utilized. And so that ended up being a good situation. A very unexpected one, because now I can actually use OBS on much higher quality than I was in the past. So upgrading was quite simple. I just did a Google search for how to upgrade, and I get this article from the forums over there. And it walks you through the philosophy. Do you have to upgrade? Well, not really. Linux Mint 17.3 is going to be supported until 2019, and so you don't have to upgrade it. In my case, the final thing for me was getting that VPN to work. And I'm pleased to report, once I upgraded to Linux Mint 18, VPN connects instantaneously, flawlessly, no issues at all. And so ultimately it solved the core reason that I had to do this. So, and I'll talk in a future video about how I set up my VPN. It was actually set up with my Raspberry Pi. So that's kind of what we're doing there. If my Pi still works, it just kind of got tossed down there. Okay. So we'll talk about what I'm doing for that VPN and how I got that working. So this website, it basically goes through, and there's some basic information. So you can go and you first have to install this Mint upgrade, and then you do an upgrade check. And this points your computer towards the repositories and then does a check to see how many systems are going to be upgraded, how many are not going to be upgraded, etc. And then once you run through that test, then you can actually do the download to download the packages, and then you finally do the upgrade, which will push it from 17.3 to 18. And so what that ended up doing is changed my Cinnamon version to 3.0.7, and I haven't noted any real differences anywhere. It kept my custom icons in place, the places I had those. But my VPN was now perfectly able to connect. So once you walk through everything here, it was quite a flawless upgrade. It took probably about 2 hours in all, versus the Ubuntu only took about an hour. But it's possible that because this computer only has Wi-Fi connection, the Ubuntu is hard-lined into the router. So that could be the issue. Now, the biggest problem I encountered in upgrading to Linux Mint 18, and this is something to keep in mind if you're still holding on to 17, you're thinking about doing 18, is that it totally wipes out all your PPAs. And so what I had to do, in fact, I think it saved them somewhere, and it tells you in the installation where it saves them to. I have no idea where, but really the only PPAs I had were the ones to get the camera functioning to work, and that seems to be working just fine. And to install the OBS, which that I just went online and re-grabbed the repository. And I'm not sure if there's anything else. I might have had another repository for Android Studio, but I haven't been doing any app development. So I just uninstalled that, and I'll reinstall it anytime that I want to go ahead and get back to that. But here you can see I'm on Linux Mint 18 Sarah now, and it did reset my mirrors. So I did have to go back in, just click on these and reset where my mirrors are coming from. Here you can see the only PPAs I have left are the OBS. It did completely destroy those. Ubuntu install was much better. It simply disabled the PPAs. I just had to go back to the screen in Ubuntu and turn everything back on. And so that's kind of what happened there. So I went ahead and I found one. Let's see. That's a quick note. As I'd said, it does not update the kernel automatically. If you do need to update the kernel, what you do is you just come down here to your Mint update, which by default is in the system tray. Click on this, go down to View Linux Kernels, and they did actually change this a little bit. That used to give you a whole lot of things, and now it will actually not only gives you a few. So you can see here that this is installed. You can see that 4.4.0-21 is installed, and these other ones are available. What it's not actually telling me is which one is active, and that's something that I liked in 17, is it gave me a whole list of things to show me what was active and what was not active. And maybe that's still there, I just got to turn it on somewhere. But I did update the kernel to 4.4.021, so I could just basically make sure I had everything as up to date as I could. No hardware issues anywhere. I did not notice if there were any proprietary drivers anywhere. I don't believe there are. If there are, they'll be under your driver manager. Let's have a quick look at that. Let's have a look. And I know when I installed Linux Mint 17, I did go ahead and say it's okay to use proprietary drivers. So, okay, so it looks like there is a driver for my CPU. I'm not using that driver. Everything seems to be working just fine, so I'm not going to bother turning that on. That's fine. But everywhere else, you know, noticeably the system essentially stayed exactly the same. If I did not know I updated this, if somebody just came in here and updated this, I wouldn't have known. Other than if you go into your themes here, then it will give you access to the newer Mint Y themes. And I thought about turning those on, but I'm like, you know what? I kind of like how the computer works. Usually I do lighter stuff, but usually I do darker stuff on many of my computers, as you can see from the one behind me here. But in this case, I'm actually using the lighter theme on this computer, and it works. That's how I've always had it, so we're going to go ahead and keep that as it was. Everything else, it preserved any of the other settings. Now, there is one major bug with Linux Mint 18, and that is in the sound files. So usually when I plug in my mic to do sounds, and hopefully I will be getting a better mic sometime soon, but what I have to do is come down here to the system tray, which actually you can't see because of where the camera is. Let me move my camera around a little bit. Let me transition back to full screen. I'm actually running this into a dual monitoring right now, which I don't usually do, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. There we go. That way I can control my OBS at the same time. So down here in your system tray is the volume icon. Click on this and click Sound Settings. So this used to give us a list. Now it gives us the icons. And you can see that here, this is where I'm at. And it's possible if I click on these other ones, it might stop my audio. I'm not sure. I'm going to give it a try. Check, check. Okay, yep, we're back on. Now the problem is with Linux Mint 18, particularly on this upgrade. I'm not sure if that was also the same case just out of the box, but at least on the upgrade, this sound selection is broken. And so I went ahead, did a little Google search to see if I could find that, and lo and behold, right here on GitHub, there is a block talking about this, and this gentleman down here, I have that power. He actually tells you exactly how to fix that sound problem. So I follow his instructions right here, and lo and behold, it was, you know, it was quite the perfect fix. It worked quite immediately. So you can do this from the terminal, or you can do this from the GUI. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to go ahead and do that there. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do this from the GUI, since on Switch to Linux, I want to make sure that I'm catering to some of the more basic users, and the terminal might be scary. Now on a terminal, this is nice and easy. If you, on Linux Mint, hold Control, hold Alt, and push T, you get a terminal pop up. And if I just do sudo, and you have to do sudo because this is in a system file, and nano to bring up the basic text editor, and then go to this file location, which is, it's not Etsy, it's user /share / and then you just follow this line over here. In fact, I could actually copy this and get right into the system here. Okay, and in the terminal, if you get your cursor to where you want it to be, hold Control, hold Shift, push V, it will paste that in. I do have to enter my password here because this is a root function, and now it is pulling up our file in a terminal that I could edit it. Well, that's actually a little scary for some people. So to access this on the user interface, I'm just going to go over here into my computer, which I have on the desktop, and then File System. And then I'm just going to navigate down to this. But remember, this is root. So before I get into the very last folder, so, okay, that was user, share, cinnamon, and then cinnamon settings. And then the last folder is going to be modules. So before I get down here, I'm going to right-click on modules. I'm going to hit open as root. It'll give me a password prompt. That'll let me in as root, and you'll see the red indication here means be careful, you could break something. So you come over here and you find the one which is the CS_sound, which is right here. Double click that, it'll open up in a text editor. And then the line I'm actually going to look for is this one right here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to copy this line, and I'm going to, not that. That's the one I wanted to bring up. And I'm going to hold Control, push F to bring up my Find dialog box, paste that in, hit Find, and it will find the location. So he tells us in this file here, he tells us that this is in the module class. So if I come up here, I'll see that I'm in the module class, right here, class module. And then under the build layout, and then it tells us to find this one line here. So what had happened is they had accidentally wrote output right here. And output is copied from above in the code up above, and this controls where the output is, but we're talking about the input. So right here, you just change this line here where it says input on mine. That would probably say output on yours by default. Just change that output to input, save the file because we are elevated, and now your sound systems will work perfectly. So that is the only bug that I found on Linux Mint 18 so far. So the other thing I wanted to check is, did this wipe out Flash Player? Because Ubuntu, on upgrading 16.04 to 16.10, it actually wiped out my Flash Player. And so didn't want to mess with that. So come over here, and the best way for me to check that, just go to view.yahoo.com. This gives you like your free Hulu. And then just click on any video, and then this will actually verify if this works or not. So if we come in here, and you'll see it'll actually start playing right away. That tells me right now that everything is actually working. And I'm not into that program. Close that out. Now this is not a computer I use for a lot of media. This is for me primarily a work computer. But everything that I had noted seems to work just fine. We had to switch that, that sound selector, so that works. Otherwise, we're doing great. The Linux Mint 17 to 18 seemed to work very smoothly. The only hitches, of course, was this input selector. I did have to reinstall OBS, although it did save all my system settings because it killed all my PPAs, and OBS is installed via PPA. It did seem to fix my issue with the VPN, so I'm able to connect to that quite instantly. And after that, then all my icons stayed the same. Everything else I tested works out just fine, and I gotta say I'm very happy with this. Especially I'm very happy I can actually run OBS now on this a lot better to get a lot higher quality than I was getting in the past. So that was actually a big win. So after doing this upgrade from 17.3 to 18, would I upgrade again? Oh, absolutely. The little fix I had to do, absolutely nothing compared to the functionality that the system gave me. So this has been Tom, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.